Hey everybody, CVH here, and today we'll be laddering with some Midrange Scout. You can see the list on the screen, and before we get into the actual games, I'd like to briefly discuss it. I decided to play this in today's video because I streamed it a bit earlier and had some really fun games and a good bit of success on the ladder, so hopefully we can replicate some of that. But a lot of the reason I wanted to play Midrange Scout today in general is because it's sort of been unloved in recent weeks, typically viewed as worse than Midrange Archer, Midrange Sorcerer, and when you see Scout decks on the ladder, they're typically of the slower variety. People have been experimenting more with Slay Scout, but mostly the ramp package is staple in Scout decks. So I kind of wanted to see if the more aggressive mid-range Scouts still had power, and we can also utilize some of the new Dark Brotherhood cards from the recent expansion in this deck as well, which I think increased the power level of it somewhat significantly. So instead of going for something like an Illusory Mimic package, which you might have seen a lot last month, we're playing the Brotherhood Slayer, the Astrid, and 3 copies of Eclipse Baroness. The big heavy hitter, I think, from the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood for agility, which should really allow us, this deck, to have even more value later in the game. Besides bursting our opponents down, which this deck doesn't really do as well as something with Lightning Bolts, this deck can play Bone Colossus and Eclipse Baroness and really have those late game finishers against control. So if you come from Hearthstone, that might function something like the Ancient of Lore pre-nerf, drawing 2 cards and a mid-range Druid. The Eclipse Baroness can give us that value option where Bone Colossus is more about board domination. So with that said, I've had a lot of success against other mid-range decks and control decks, especially when it moves into the late game. We obviously have starts where we take over the board really quickly because this deck has some of the most powerful creatures on curve on turns 2 through 3, and those are really important turns. As the game goes later, this deck does have an ability to sort of hold its own on board against control decks, so I found it to be slightly weak against aggro. So we'll see what we queue against. Hopefully we can have some fun games and duplicate some of that success from the stream. It's worth noting also, in addition to what I said about the deck in the intro to this video, that it is very much a work in progress. This is sort of my rough draft, you could say. A lot of my videos I'm playing with decks that I haven't fully refined. I just enjoy them when I get the ideas out there in videos, and if you guys like the concept and how it looks in the gameplay portion of these videos, by all means feel free to experiment with the card counts, whether you don't have an epic or legendary you need to replace, or if you simply think something else could do the job better than something in the deck. But for the mulligan, we are going to keep the 2-drop. We have the Ring of Magicka, which is where this deck wants to be, and I think we can reasonably assume that our opponent is on a slower version of Scout, since those are usually more prevalent on the ladder. So for starters, I think we're just going to ring out this Mournhold Trader. This is kind of risky against Fighters Guild Recruit, but anything we do is bad against Fighters Guild Recruit.
Of course I'm on
That
your
is
side.
one main reason we have the Shadow Shifts in the decks to protect the Mournhold Trader from pesky lethals.
If I fall,
It's not ideal. Not an ideal way to start out the gameplay portion of this video, but I think we can persevere. Press on, simply taking that unfavorable trade. And I think we'll just play Dark Guardian to handle the 1-2, take a favorable there instead of playing Thieves Guild.
didn't see this coming, eh?
We don't want to lose the field lane that quickly. And if we simply play the Thieves Guild Recruit, they trade, but then my opponent gets to develop first there.
Just give me a name.
Alright, Wrath of Sith is not totally useful yet. We can simply play another Dark Guardian, I think. He will be getting his completed contract, which is not great. Our opponent has had a good start to deal with what we've played.
It's nothing personal.
You definitely do find yourself missing Firebolts and Lightning Bolts in a non-sorcerer mid-range deck. And even the curses of Midrange Archer would have been very helpful here. However, we do have a good play off the top of our deck. The issue with Shadowfen Priest is that our next couple turns are not looking ideal. We only have the Thieves Guild Recruit for playable creatures once we use the last charge of this Ring of Magicka. So is it worth playing the Shadowfen Priest with the ring? Developing a 4-4 will go down to a 2-2 once we kill the Slayer. The 2-5 can still kill the 2-2. He'll have a 2-3. We can trade favorably into that. This play is just so weak and sets us up to get him another completed contract. I think this is what we're forced into.
You must be cleansed.
Make the line that gives us an immediate kill. Blood Magic Lord. Wow, Blood Magic Lord, Reeve, Lucian, and Bone Daddy in one arena deck. Can you guys see that? I'm trying to get it up. Yep, there it goes.
Waters of life.
Maybe later. Yep. Treeminder by itself isn't the most powerful play. Doesn't even set up to trade. Oh, I'm sad. If we played Thieves Guild Recruit last year, we would have had a reduced Baroness. They're still really good in the matchup, but definitely would be better if they cost 6, right? I think we'll just play Thieves Guild on the right so it doesn't get eaten by the 2-3 for free.
What have we here?
Yeah, Ungolem is okay,
Mother of mud. The Night Mother
as in it's playable. Not overly excited about it, though. If we can draw these Brotherhood Assassins quickly, however, they are some of the best cards against Midrange Scout, which does not typically have great ways to deal with a wide board of a lot of creatures. But we are moving into the scariest turns of the game, the late game. Our opponent can play cards like Nog, Leave, Red Brahmin, this thing. This thing is an issue. Wow, it's kind of risky playing it in the left. He's dealing with the most relevant threat, but if I had 1 extra damage, be able to trade here. Unfortunately, that's not the world I'm currently living in. I guess we can punch a bit since he's going to be gaining a lot of life back. Wrath of Sithis. Make his turn a little bit more annoying, but not too much. Not too much, since he does have a Night Shadow that's ready to go. Ooh, that also hurts. It costing a little bit more this turn isn't that detrimental. Brotherhood Slayer.
Just give me a name.
Of course I'm on your side.
Yeah, one issue with mid-range decks, and it's also one of their benefits, which is why I recommend them a lot, is that they typically have very linear plays. They just play 1 creature per turn a lot of the time. It's just whatever the biggest thing you can play is, whatever corresponds to however much Magicka you have open. But the issue with that is sometimes there really is only 1 play, such as we saw in the first few turns of this game. And when your opponent has a play that counters that, things can get a bit hairy. Well, at least we have another option this turn with the Shadow Shift Bone Colossus. I say let's go for it.
Didn't see this coming, eh?
It sucks to say, but even with the Bone Colossus and the Double Baroness in our hands, we are really far behind as far as pushing damage is concerned. Pressuring your opponent doesn't work too well if they're at above 30 life, because they're not really feeling the pressure at that point.
You must be
Yeah, but he has a little bit of board to answer. That's going to help him a lot here. 2 blood magic spells to worry about now, because if 1 wasn't fun enough, Gargoyle, alright, that's really hard to answer with my army of 1/1s. If we play anything in the left, he's going to be able to trade with my trader with his Shadowfin Priest. And I'll have to attack the 2-1 with whatever it is. I think I play Baroness in the right, given the knowledge of that.
Let's go then. My time is precious.
I can play Thieves Guild.
What have we here?
Didn't see this coming, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we let the 1/1s take down the Blood Magic Lord. He gets another Blood Magic spell. The alternative is trading them all in for free with the Gargoyle, instead of letting them kill the Blood Magic Lord and the Dark Guardian, hopefully. But in reality, we have much bigger problems now than an additional Blood Magic spell. It's everything else he can play. Also, we're at 17, so he could just die if he has, like, a Drain Life. Which it looks like he has a Drain Life, based on these attacks. So, an unfortunate start to the run. Alright, Tazcat also works. Tazcat also works. Yeah. A classic case of our opponent having the Fighters Guild Recruit to our Mournhold Trader and not drawing Shadow Shift just in time. So let's queue up again and hope that next one goes slightly better than that. Got a Monk. So Control Monk has been more popular than the more aggressive versions by a fairly wide margin, so we can assume it's going to be that. Hopefully we can get some pressure going early and cap out our curve with our late game threats, like the deck is designed to do. Unfortunately, couldn't accomplish that against the Midrange Scout, but we can try again this game. And we still have the ring, and Thieves Guild is pretty reasonable.
What have we here?
Reducing Bone Colossus or Eclipse Baroness or Tazcad can often just seal the game by itself against a control deck. We have a lot of Thieves Guilds. I think we can just wait until turn 4 and play double Thieves Guild. I'd rather just get some actual power on the board. This protects pretty well against maybe a Fighter's Guild or, you know, Sanctuary Pet plays, something like that in this lane in the future. Still weak to Execute, but so is Dark Guardian. If we bait out and Execute here, it's unlikely, or more so, that Dark Guardian will get executed. Now, if he pets now, it's kind of problematic. Depending on what else he has. Kind of forced to play the Dark Guardian in the right if we want to play Dark Guardian this turn. I still think we do.
Scales move in shadow.
I like staying on curve somewhat.
A little distraction might prove useful.
Taking off the word for free. I think we're fairly free to just continue developing little guys in the left after we trade with the 2-2. We could go double Thieves Guild or Dark Guardian Thieves Guild. If we can assume he doesn't have an Execute, I think I like the second optional more. Let's draw a card first and see what happens with the draw. Bone Colossus, that's looking pretty good for next turn. So yeah, let's trade with the 2-2 here. Go face. Go face. Hit a Prophecy, which I'm gonna hope is Piercing Javelin. Alright. That's basically a Piercing Javelin, if you want to talk about it like that. And ring out the Dark Guardian, because that was the original plan. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's substantially annoying. I could have played that first to draw another card. I was hoping we wouldn't hit a Prophecy in general. It's worth considering if we already had one. But then he gets a lot of choices, right? Like, then he can play Fighter's Guild over there because he knows there's something big to contest. At the moment of him getting the Prophecy, he didn't know that I'd be able to put something there to trade with that. That'd be easy to kill with the Fighter's Guild. So it's really about the additional card versus the knowledge we're giving him and how much that can help his plays. Because I don't hate the situation, how it turned out. I think it's actually kind of okay for us, given that we have a turn 5 Bone Colossus. I should probably play this first. Oh boy. Alright, Giant Bat. Pretty good against that 3-2, in all honesty. So considering smacking my face here. Oh, he is.
My scales move in shadow.
So he has 10 on board. It's not the most damage ever. We could just triple trade our skeletons into that 6-6 though. I think that leaves us in a fine position. And I think I like just playing 3 and 3 here. We can play Mammoth in the left to contest 3-4. And really take over the field lane, I think. Yeah. I like that. Double Preserver next turn to put 12-12 of total stats on board. And looking to close out the game after that with a little bit of cycle to replenish if we need to in forms of the Baroness and the Thieves Guild. He's really getting aggressive.
My scales move in shadow.
I don't think the play really changes too much. We could just use these to trade with that and buff this up to 8 attack.
My scales move in shadow.
I like this. We'll see what we hit first. Now, the best way to split the lane.
The Night Mother will die.
So this should play around Dawn's Wrath because we have exactly 9 damage in each lane. Yeah, I was thinking Preserver Spell Sword, but we have the ring, so we can just bring out the 3-3 instead. I have 9 in each lane if he Dawn's Wraths, and that's like the main card that you'd expect on turn 8 from a Control Monk. Typically play 2 or even 3 copies of it. So this definitely is good against that. And we do have guaranteed lethal in either lane too, since we can bypass the the 5 rune, with either going down to 6, then we hit for 6, or down to 8, then we hit for 8. So we shouldn't have to worry about that last rune being a prophecy, if all goes well. Two of those can stall. Actually, I had 2 of them. That would be all 3.
What have we here?
Thanks to the Baroness, though, and the fact that we still have some threatening creatures on board, I think we're probably going to be fine.
Move in shadow.
I believe. Do we want to use the Baroness this turn? Or even Thorn Histmage Preserver, if we want to get the completed contract there. Yeah, I like that. Let's get the contract.
For the Black Hand.
Let's play Histmage over here because it's a little bit more expendable.
The Hist provides. I will protect the Hist.
Trying to protect this 8/8 if we can. So needs some help. Or he's still dead to the Bone Colossus. Don't think anything with 1 Magicka saves him here.
The Night Mother will guide us. My scales move in shadow.
A solid game. Oh, and we got our own Brotherhood Assassin too. I don't want to show up for the PM. Nice, right on time, Brotherhood Assassin. Way to hold down the fort. We'll have some games with the Midrange Scout deck, with the Eclipse Baroness, and a lot of other things from the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood. Hopefully you've enjoyed. As always, if you did, feel free to leave a like. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for more gameplay videos and strategy content for Legends. Follow my stream. Link is in the description, and I'll see you guys next time.